Go to your Ta'lim for attendance. Okay. So for today's topic, we are looking on establishment of critical criteria or critical limit for halal control point. Right. So as starting point on this topic, let's revise again what Dr. Nurul's been told you. There are 7 steps of halal assurance system. The first step is describe of product. Second part is develop or draw process flow diagram and plant schematic diagram. The third part is third step, determination of halal critical point. Remember? So in the third step, there is a table that you need to fill in. Is it correct? Okay. You shall have your process flow, refer your process flow, and from that process flow, you need to identify hazard for each of the process flow, and then from there you need to evaluate the likelihood, severity, and from the likelihood and severity you will count or you will determine the risk ranking. Any risk ranking 7, 8 and 9 will be considered halal critical point. Ya. Betul tak? Yang saya cakap tu semua salah sebenarnya. No. Benda tu betul. Okay, benda tu betul. Kan? Alright. So the third step is identification halal critical point. There is a table you need to fill in. Alright. So from there, any risk rank step that has a risk ranking 7, 8 and 9 will be selected as halal critical point. And then this halal critical and this step will be brought forward to another table. Okay. Okay, that's a table. I will show you the table first. So how the table looks like. This one. Right? So this is the second table for halal assurance system. So in conclusion, in your 7 step of halal assurance system for this semester, there are 2 tables that you need to fill in. So in case there is a question coming asking you to talk about halal assurance system, there are 2 tables you need to prepare. Right? Same goes if you are working in any halal industries, you need to fill in these 2 tables. The first table is from the Dr. Nurul's class for halal control point. And then this table is, we call it Halal Thayyiban Risk Management Plan Summary. Only step that has been selected as halal control point will be brought forward to this table and to be explained and filled in. Alright? So, since this topic for today is talking about critical criteria of critical limit, it falls into this column, critical limit lah. Alright? Kita pergi balik to the first topic. Okay. So what is critical limit? In the column, okay, critical limit means measurable value which separates acceptability from unacceptability. Sesuatu nilai yang boleh diukur untuk membezakan sesuatu itu diterima ataupun tidak. For example, if we are talking about an ingredient having halal certificate and doesn't have halal certificate. So, some value to say that it has halal certificate and doesn't have halal certificate. So, that's mean acceptable and unacceptability. Alright? So, any value that falls beyond this critical limit is considered deviation. Contoh, for example, in Malaysia, for us to slaughter a chicken, there are 4 vein that you need to sever. Ada 4 urat yang perlu dicederakan. But that falls under halal certification. As you are Sharia-based student, for example, Islamic, you know actually only 2, right? So bezakan you have to take note. Syariah point of view 2, tapi for pensijilan halal 4. Alright? So so in this case we are talking about pensijilan halal Malaysia. So you need to follow the rules lah. Alright. So if you slaughter any animal that doesn't have, which is those 4 beans are not properly severed, so that's indicate it falls beyond the critical limit. Critical limit say it should be 4, you only severe 2 or 3, so that's indicate you deviation from your critical limit. Faham kan? Okay. Before slaughtering, there is an activity we call it stunning. Okay. Unfortunately, in Malaysia, we shall follow this rule. Kita kena stun animal. For chicken, you have to dip their head into a electronic bath. So, for the electronic bath, there is some electricity, arus, voltage, so on and so forth. There is a range of the voltage. So, the setting of the machine, stunning machine, if the voltage, they have a range. If the setting of the stunning machine falls beyond that range, so that's indicate it's having a deviation from the critical limit. Okay, contohnya, for stunning a chicken can be properly stunned at the voltage 1 to 1.2 voltage volt. This is just an example. So, but on the day that you are stunning your chicken, it's you see that the voltage that being used displayed in the machine is 1.3. So that's indicate it falls beyond the critical limit. Alright? So this is what we are going to fill in the table. Okay? Okay? So what is criteria and critical limit in halal assurance system? Further explanation. Okay? It is also considered a maximum or minimum value to which a halal toyiban threat must be controlled at halal control point to prevent, eliminate or reduce the occurrence of the identified halal toyiban threat to an acceptable level. Alright? So in Malay, ancaman halal threat, halal toyiban threat is considered ancaman halal and contaminant is considered bahan pencemar lah. Right? So sometimes why I put a Malay language there, because when you are facing your auditor, and most of auditor in Malaysia related to halal, they use a Malay language lah in Malaysia. Okay, so I put up this term so that you will not be confused with this term lah. Alright. So the first definition of critical limit, accept and unacceptability. Another one is minimum and maximum value. Example of accept and unacceptability is whether your ingredient having halal certificate or not having halal certificate. That's one example. For maximum and minimum value, the example of the stunning machine is considered this definition. It falls under this definition, right? For example, another example, you are preparing a bakery product. For your bakery product, it shall be put in the oven in range one, for example, 80 degree to 100 degrees Celsius. So the oven setting shall be between within this range to consider that your bakery product will be produced in high quality. If it is not, so it is considered deviate from the critical limit. So that 80 to 100 degree is the minimum and maximum value. So faham ada dua cara untuk critical limit. Right? Apa lagi? Okay? Okay, this one I've already said. Criteria limit for halal ada dua. The first one between unacceptability and acceptability. For the status of the halal threat, ancaman halal is halal threat. Critical limit for toyiban is also based on maximum or minimum value. Okay, of the toyiban threat that must be controlled. Okay, when I say toyiban, so that's indicate your quality, your cleanliness, your nutritious lah. Alright. So that example of oven, your mixer, your formulation, the range is considered and falls under toyiban part. Okay. Okay. I give another example. Contoh, you buat kosmetik. Okay. In Inhad, I offer services for cosmetic formulation. So I prepare lotion, moisturizer and lip balm, lipstick. Tapi I tak pakai lah. Okay. Macam biasalah. Most of people dia akan tanya, why you prepare a formulation? I sell to client, but I don't use. Sama lah, kita kalau jadi coach, kita tak main bola sepak kan? Same goes like me lah. Right? So, apa beza? What is the difference between lotion and moisturizer in formulation? If you have a lotion, the water base shall be higher in term of percentage compared to oil base. Itu untuk lotion. But for moisturizer, terbalik lah. Alright? So, there is some range to say that the acceptable range of this ratio to be considered, it falls under moisturizer or lotion. So this is also considered under Toyiban for quality lah. If I'm wrong in preparing the formulation, that's indicate I declare one product is moisturizer, but actually during the formulation preparation is wrong. Okay, so that's considered Toyiban and quality part. Okay, so that's also considered and falls under critical limit that you need to prepare lah. Okay, so critical limit is compulsory to be prepared for halal control point. From that Dr. Nurul's section, you have identified the halal control point. You bring the step to the second table. So, and then from this second table, you have to establish a critical limit. All right, for that step. Okay, and then the halal control point HCP is identified from the process flow. This one as a revision only. Okay. Critical limit shall be specified for each HCP. In some case, more than one critical limit will be elaborated at a particular step. Alright? Contohnya, for example, yang macam tadi I cakap, I buat formulation. The first place, I need to purchase ingredient that having halal certificate. So there is a critical limit there, whether having halal certificate or not having halal certificate. Boleh jadi balik. And then the second part, the formulation, right? Whether it's within the range of how many percentage of water and oil base. So that's another halal control point for the step of preparing ingredient only, right? Dia kenapa benda ni Okay. Criteria often used include measurement of temperature, time, moisture level, pH, water activity. AW is water activity, viability, chlorine, and sensory parameters which can be observed, such as visual appearance and texture. Okay. Same goes if you are preparing for food, for example, you have to take note. For example, you are preparing bread. Okay, and then from that you have to identify the shelf life. Apa lama roti tu boleh dimakan dengan tak. Okay, so for that it's also shall have their own critical limit for this kind of food lah. Right? Okay. This is an important part. How do you identify critical limit? Macam mana nak mengenal pasti hard critical? Critical limit. The first part is it shall be measurable. Measurable falls under the Toyiban part. Okay. Or for halal part, for example, slaughterhouse, your stunning machine. Okay. So that's an example. It shall be measurable. However, if the critical limit is based on subjective data such as visual or non-visual inspection of the product, process handling, etc., it shall be supported by instruction, specification, or validation and or training. For example, we are talking about bakery products where you have some color changes in product can be considered an indicator. Contohlah, you kata, okay, contoh for example, the one that I have, the moisturizer and lotion. Moisturizer and lotion, for there is a mixture of oil and water. Minyak dengan air tak bercampur sepatutnya. So for us to make them mix well, we shall include an emulsifier. So that's why after, if you look at your cosmetic product, at the back of it, it shall have like this one, a symbol. Which means after 6 months, when you open, it will not be good anymore. What happened after these 6 months? Okay, usually when you prepare a moisturizer and lotion, this is water based, this is oil, this is water, and then you add an emulsifier. Okay, when you add an emulsifier, it will be mixed well. Usually after 6 months, they akan jadi separated layer again, right? So water and oil lah. Okay, so in this case, you can use the term there, subjective data such as visual. So when you see 2 layers being produced, so that's indicate your critical limit for that moisturizer. This is an example lah. For certain food, for example, they change of texture. Roti yang you makan makin keras, for example. So that is, you can consider as your kita panggil apa, critical limit as well. Alright, so that is the first explanation. The second explanation is critical limit shall be scientifically validated to obtain evidence that halal trade measures can prevent or reduce the halal trade to an unacceptable level. For example, nowadays people prepare food, they don't, we have, we call that one, a better machine now. For example, previously people cook food. Now, for me, for example, I want to prepare omelette, for example. I just use air fryer without oil. Okay? But for me to know that the omelette are well prepared and safe for consumption, I have to validate first what is the best temperature and how long the air fryer usage to prepare the omelette according to my machine. So different machine having different procedure or instruction. So it shall be validated. So I have to try first. Kalau kita buat 5 minit, suhu 200, jadi tak telur tu? Okay? Telur goreng ke, jadi telur dadar ke? Jangan you masuk, tiba-tiba keluar jadi telur masak kicap. For example lah. Alright? So you have to validate first. Same goes in industries. They don't simply macam magician buat tambah terus result keluar. They shall test first. Berapa lama, for how long the preparation shall undergo for them to get a halal and quality products. Okay, yang ni. Okay, so what document that you can refer to validate? Okay, for example, that stunning activities, there is a document prepared by our veterinary department lah. Dia akan beritahu, they will tell us what is the voltage for the stunning activities. Okay, for industries in food, for example, you have machine. So machines came together with their manual and instruction. So you need to refer to that manual before you decide on the critical limit. Okay, I give an example. Okay, this is an example. You also can refer for scientific publication. Okay, this is stunning activities according to type of animals. Okay, so you can see that lambs current range of ampere 0.7 to 0.9, for example. For how long? 0.8 to 1.5, or if they want to change, they want to use the current range, they use voltage 300 to 400 for lambs. Alright, so this is also another example for you to refer for stunning activity in a slaughterhouse. Kita tak tahu nanti you kerja kat mana. Alright, so since we talk about halal, we have 7 or 9 schemes. All these schemes follow the similar step for halal assurance system, but depends on your premise. If you are slaughterhouse, you have to look up to this level. If you are food producing, you have to check on your ingredient, your machinery, your process, right? This is an example lah. Okay, if you want to refer to any stunning advantage. Okay, for example, this one, any company that produce we call it nutraceutical products. This is the case like what I have been doing for with cosmetics, for example. So it state there for us to mix well the prepared cosmetic, for example, we need to use the ultrasound device at this frequency, 20 kilohertz to 2 megahertz. If not, the ingredient are not mixed well. Okay, so this is an example. All right. Okay, example on critical ingredient without halal status. So you can see here that the one that I highlight in yellow, while food safety has critical limit, halal assurance has zero tolerance for haram. So it shall be very clear what kind of cross-contamination will be considered as haram lah. Okay. So in this case, you have to take note on halal on this part. You have to really look into having a halal certificate from the supplier of ingredient at the first place. Okay, those that having range value, voltage, temperature, time, that's under Toyiban part. So that's one, you just go to look from the publish or manuals or standards. That one you can get that information from this document. But for ingredient status, whether it's halal or not, just look for halal certificate and this supporting document that we learned in the last class lah. Right? So what is the next step post selecting the critical limit? Okay, selepas kita setting hard limit, okay, it shall be validated and then you shall monitor. Monitor ni we will learn in next week. Okay, but how? Sorry, this Wednesday. But this Wednesday, we don't have a physical class. Kita akan buat online class saja. But I make a recording. So you just go to your iTaklim lah. Okay. So this Wednesday in the recording there is a way of how to monitor the critical limit. Okay. So you will learn on that part lah. Okay. The location of monitoring shall be recorded where relevant. The monitoring method and frequency shall be capable of identifying any non-conformity in time for the product to be controlled and isolated before it is used or consumed. Okay, so what is next step? Post selecting the critical limit, determine the corrective action for each halal control point. Okay, for each halal control point, specific documented corrective action shall be established. This one you will be learned in the next classes. I just show you what is the next part. Okay. So this is the column that you are learning. Alright. So next class on Wednesday you will learn about this column. Next class you will learn on this column. Next class we will learn about this one. Alright. So for my session, you will learn about this table, and then there is subsection you will learn as well. Okay. So this is the critical limit that we learn for today lah. Okay. So where does critical limit establishment is placed in the halal assurance system? So actually, for your information, we took the halal control point from one concept we call it HACCP. Halal, sorry, it's not HACCP. Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point. So they adopt this hazard analysis critical control point HACCP, and then from this HACCP they establish a halal critical control point. Okay, so you can find from this document where they put up this halal control point lah. Okay, so from this HACCP, they also stated that you need to establish one table, the one that Dr. Nurul stated in her section. Okay, the similar approach, since we are adopting the similar approach, in the next section, which is my section, you will need to establish critical limit. So this critical limit that you learn for today is adopting the same approach for from the HACCP lah. All right. Okey. Sampai situ ada soalan tak? Ke rasa blur? Alright. Boleh kita ambil satu contoh dulu sebelum kita habis kelas? Okey. Okay. This is an example of slaughtering for... Oh, tapi ni ada babi lah pula. Kita bukan nak slaughtering babi. Sekejap ya. Ni kita tak nak. Ni boleh kot. Itu sama. Ni. Alright. Okay. So, this is an example of slaughtering. Screen. Alright. Yang ni, this is an example of you are involving with slaughtering of chicken, birds. Okay. So, what you shall do, usually, kalau dekat sini, if you are working with the slaughterhouse, okay, so when you want to slaughter chicken, you will receive a chicken at slaughterhouse. Okay, apa sebenarnya yang berlaku in slaughterhouse before you receive a chicken? Can we simply receive a chicken from anybody? So, they shall go to farm, correct? So, what this farm shall do before they send their chicken to your slaughterhouse? Chicken shall be fast, okay. Macam mana? Vaccine, oh alright, vaccine, okay, quite near. What shall we do? If I have a slaughterhouse, before I receive any chicken, what shall I do? What shall I request from the farm? Apa? Tak dengar, tak dengar. Kita pernah, okay, siapa sini masuk nasyid? Kita belajar tak? Suara bawah, suara atas. Dia kena clear. Dia macam tak boleh dah tarik, bila sampai yang chorus tu, dia kena jangan pakai suara apa? Falsetto. Cakap kuat-kuat. So, what shall we do in farm before, what shall we do in slaughterhouse before we receive any chicken? Any farm, they shall have a veterinary health certificate for their chicken. Kan kita ada bird flu dekat Malaysia, pernah berlaku, alright? So this type of certificate also become a critical limit at this stage. Okay? Veterinary Health Certificate lah. Esok kalau kerja jadi halal executive jangan tak tahu. Alright, okay. From Dr. Nurul section, you shall follow the process flow diagram, correct? Okay, from there you can identify the likelihood, severity, risk ranking. Okay, so from here, for example, I take this one as my halal control point 1. Alright, and then unloading and hanging. Okay, this is also, okay, when you unload and hanging, this also can be a halal control point too. Why? Apa jadi dekat ayam when you receive at farm at slaughterhouse? Kena tengok tak ayam bawa naik lori? Ha, apa jadi dekat ayam tu? Ha. Pernah sembelih ayam tak? Ni pergi Lotus Giant beli yang dah masak tu je. Okey, ayam bila sampai ke slaughterhouse, dia akan kepanasan. Dia akan lemas. So what they do, dia akan keluarkan dulu, dia akan cek ayam tu dah mati ataupun belum. Sometimes dia akan simbah air dulu. Basahkan ayam tu, lepas tu dia akan check. They will check on the eye movement. Alright? So dekat situ, kalau we just take those chicken go for stunning and slaughtering, ada kemungkinan we are stunning and slaughtering, carry on, bangkai lah. Alright, so because of that, this step, unloading and hanging ni pun boleh jadi halal control point. Because there are possibility your product, chicken itself can be haram. Alright? Then, we move to next step, which is stunning. Okay, dalam stunning, this is also HCP because if you are stunning your chicken beyond the critical limit that we set, the chicken might be died. Okay, so boleh jadi bangkai. Carry on, another one lah, another issue. Okay, and then bleeding, and then scalding. Scalding ni dia buat apa? Kali ini dia akan celurkan dalam minyak panas for them to remove the feather. Betul ke ni tak pernah slaughterhouse? Dia datang makan je. Dekat mahalah tu confirm ke ayam tu ni? Alright, tak apa, nanti boleh tengok kat YouTube lah. And then defeathering, kita cabutkan bulu. Okay, last kali baru evisceration. Evisceration ni apa? Dia akan buang apa? Kuat, tak dengar. Dia buang apa? Evisceration ni. Dia buang organ dalaman, najis-najis lah. Kita kena buat kelas vokal lah. Alright. Okay, saya tak nak, I won't go for this one. I just go for this, the earlier part lah. Okay, sebenarnya for slaughterhouse, semua step ni boleh jadi halal control point. But different slaughterhouse may facing different issues. So some slaughterhouse may say scalding is not an issue for them. Some slaughterhouse say each of these steps become halal control point for them. Okay. So in this case, for example, in Dr. Nurul section, after you determine the halal which step is halal control point. So in this case, for example, we have 7 steps. Actually banyak lagi, panjang lagi bawah tu. After evisceration, we just take 7 steps. Out of these 7 steps, 3 steps are halal control point. So I just take the step number 1, number 2, and number 3 only to the table. Bring to the table. Kita tak akan masuk 7 steps. On Dr. Nurul section, all 7 steps shall be evaluated on the likelihood, severity, risk ranking, semua. But at the end of Dr. Nurul section, we determine halal control point. So we get 3. Those 3 steps will be brought forward to my table, my section table lah. Right? So daripada situ you will know halal control point. For example here receiving this veterinary health certificate is your critical limit. Sorry critical limit. Unloading and hanging pun boleh jadi critical limit whether your chicken died or not. Alright. And then stunning critical limit dia adalah voltage range. Nampak tak? Can get the way that we develop critical limit lah. Alright. Even in the stunning section, we can develop two critical limit. You have to check on the eye movement, whether after stunning, is there any possibility of the chicken died because of the stunning? Alright. So this is also can be your critical limit lah. Okay, died or not. Okay. Sorry lah, tulisan memang macam tu. Nak jadi doktor perubatan tak boleh dulu, ambil doktor PhD je. Alright. Tapi tulisan kita masih sama buruk lah. Alright. So I think this is the example about critical limit. Why I choose this example because I want to make sure you really know what doctor's neural section will be brought forward to my section. There is a continuity. Okay, dia bukan separuh. Continuity daripada doctor neural section go to my section lah. Okay, so I think that's all for my section. This video will be uploaded to your iTaklim if you want to refer back. Okay, those who just joining, go to your iTaklim, fill in your attendance, and the notes also being uploaded in the iTaklim as well. Okay, so before we end, any question? Ada soalan? Apa ni ada kelas ke? Alright. Soalan? No? Okay. Kalau tak ada soalan, if there is no question, thank you everyone. This Wednesday there is no physical class. I will make a recording. You can go to your iTaklim first. We will meet you next week insyaAllah. Alright. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.